The Octagon continues to cross international barriers. The UFC's 147th edition comes out of Brazil this Saturday. The show marks the organization's fourth stop in Brazil and third within a year. Joe Cervenka, as always, partnered up with Tyler Mason. And Tyler, a very local flavor on this card. Just two non-Brazilians in actions. And, of course, one of them is the former middleweight champ, Ace Rich Franklin, as he takes on one of Brazil's favorite son, the berserker, the video game, the warrior that is the axe murderer, Vanderlei Silva. Two conflicting styles. Ace is more of a technical southpaw type of fighter, where Silva is probably the most unorthodox, orthodox stance brawler. Who takes it between these legends? Part 2.
Well, an important thing to keep in consideration in this fight is that Franklin's coming on short notice. I mean, I don't know if it's going to affect his performance all that much. I mean, he always seems to be in really great shape. You've seen his past fights. He has one of the best work ethics. And I think the difference in this fight is going to be the technical striking that Rich Franklin has. I mean, he is the southpaw. And, you know, because of the way Vanderlei comes in, he brawls all the time. Having someone who's a southpaw might give him a little bit of trouble. We saw in the first fight, I mean, it was controversial. A lot of people thought maybe Vanderlei won that fight. But I think, you know, Franklin, he's been in a few less wars than Vanderlei. Vanderlei's got a lot of beat-up miles on his body. So I think Franklin's just the fresher of the two fighters, and I think he's a little more technical on the feet.
Okay, now even this, though it is a catch weight, is Rich Franklin a legitimate contender at either 185 or 205?
I think it really depends. I mean, they keep flipping him back and forth. I mean, every time he seems to get close to a title shot, you know, he gets a loss and it moves him back down. I think he's more of a contender at 185. That being said, I don't know if anyone wants to see Anderson Silva, Rich Franklin 3. But Anderson Silva is getting old. I mean, so if he, you know, retires in the next few years and Rich Franklin stays around, maybe there's a potential for a title shot down the line. But again, I mean, there's lots of contenders in both these divisions. And he's got to work his way back up just like everybody else. Okay, speaking of contenders, let's head to the heavyweight division where the other non-Brazilian on the card, Mike Russo. Not a lot of people know this guy, but he's looked pretty good. 12th win in a row overall. 5th straight in the Octagon he's going after. 12 if he gets this win, of course. Standing in his way, another hometown hero, Fabricio Werdum. He could have the best ground game in the division. But what does Werdum have to do to make it 2 in a row since returning to the UFC? And not only the best ground game in the division, he could be the best guy outside of the heavyweight champ in this division. Bold I mean, there's a lot of people are sleeping on Werdum, and I mean, since he beat Fedor, his only loss has been to Overeem. So I mean, which was controversial. I mean, he did butt flop a lot in that fight, but on the feet he was landing quite a bit. So we have kind of a sleeping contender in Werdum. Mike Russo, most people know him from the baby hammer fist finish on Todd Duffy. That's right. He's got 3 quality wins over grapplers in Nimo, John Madsen, and Todd Duffy. But I think Werdum is just the contender in waiting. I think this guy should get a title shot in the near future, but he definitely needs to fight someone who has a bigger name than Mike Russo, and I think he'll get that after this. But I think Werdum wins this fight pretty easily. Now, Werdum will have time to get another fight, like you said, maybe a bigger name, because we know Cain Velasquez and Junior Dos Santos is next. Of course, they would love to market that Dos Santos-Werdum rematch. Who would you like to see him get before that step? What does he got to clear to get Dos Santos? Well, you'd like to see him fight any of the top contenders. I mean, we saw he already went through Roy Nelson, completely demolished him. I mean, if they want a rematch over him, it really depends on whether his steroid or PED controversy is all cleaned up. But it's definitely got to be one of the top guys. I wouldn't mind to see him fight Big Nog. Get a big vet under there. If you take out Fedor and Big Nog in your career, those are 2 of the top heavyweights of all time. But yeah, you got to give Werdum someone at the top of this division. And, maybe even a Frank Mir. I mean, that's what I was just thinking. That would be an interesting matchup for me. I mean, you got arguably, you could market it as two of the greatest submission heavyweights in the world. So I'd like to see that fight. Now we head down 120 pounds to the featherweights. Yuri Alcantara looks for his 14th straight W and has improved to a perfect 3-0 inside the Octagon as he takes on newcomer Akran Diaz. Your challenge here, Tyler, is to do the entire analysis in Portuguese and go. That's definitely not going to happen. The only Portuguese I know cannot be on television. But yeah, Yuri Alcantara, he's got some quality wins, over Omigawa, Felipe Orantes, and also Ricardo Lamas. I mean, those are 3 top guys in the world. Especially since Orantes just beat Carvalho, it really proves that they're at the top of this division. I think, Alcantara could be another guy who's just waiting in the wings that a lot of people don't know about that could be a contender pretty soon. So I'm going to go with Alcantara because anytime you got a guy like Hakran Diaz coming in, no UFC experience, they always have those kind of jitters of the big show, and they don't really perform. Yeah, they don't perform up to what they can. So I got to go with the guy who's got the UFC experience.
And we're always talking about the next guy to give a contender in that division. What would he need to do, and how close would he be to a title shot?
I mean, you just got to kind of make. I think at this point, Alcantara's got the wins. The big wins, but just not the name wins. I think people need to know who he is. So I think they need to market him more as a top contender. Once he gets a win over a guy who's been, at the top of the fight. I mean, someone who would have been perfect if he didn't retire would have been like a Kenny Florian.
Sure.
Someone like that who has the name value at that weight class and people know, that would definitely kind of push you towards the title shot.
All right, rounding out the week, Felipe Orantes, who's coming off a decision victory over Canadian Antonio Carvalho in Brazil back in January, takes on MMA vet Milton Vieira, fighting in the octagon for the first time. What can you tell us about this all-Brazilian tilt?
Like you said, the big win over Carvalho is the important thing to take a look at here. I mean, he's fighting a vet in Milton Vieira who's fought guys like Jake Shields. He's fought guys like Sakurai. Unfortunately, he lost those fights. He does have a win over Luciano Acevedo, who is the only man to beat Jose Aldo. But I'm going to have to side with Felipe Orantes in this fight. I mean, I think this kid is hitting his stride, and a win over a vet like that is going to just boost his confidence. And who knows where he can go from there.
All right, recapping, you're going with Rich Franklin to hand Vanderlei Silva his 5th UFC loss. Fabricio Verdum to perhaps emerge as the next contender for the heavyweight crown. Alcantara over Diaz and Orantes to get past Vieira. Remember, you can catch 2 hours of live prelim this Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on Sportsnet. And tune in Monday to UFC Central for a full recap of the event. Next week, we'll start breaking down that stacked UFC 148 card, featuring, of course, the rematch, Chael Sonnen, Anderson Silva, Tito Ortiz's retirement match, the trilogy with Forrest Griffin, as well as Montreal's Patrick Cote's octagon return. That's it for now. Tyler Mason, I'm Joe Cervenka. We'll see you in 7 days for Sonnen Silva 2.